The lights flickered again inside the Zilani monitoring station as another massive explosion rocked the outer hull. Communications Officer Veltar's four hands moved frantically across his control panel, trying to keep the transmission array online. His pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear. "Sir, we're losing power to the long-range transmitters," called out sensor operator HFY from across the cramped bridge. "The Korthok ships are getting closer, maybe 2 hours before they reach us." Station Commander Atherin looked exhausted. For 3 days straight, he had been coordinating their desperate plea for help. The Korthok hegemony had already destroyed 12 Zilani colonies. Their war machines were unstoppable. Every ship the Zilani sent against them was turned into floating scrap metal within minutes. "Keep transmitting," Atherin ordered. "Someone out there has to help us." Veltar nodded and opened the channel again. His voice was shaking as he spoke into the communicator. "Unknown civilizations. This is the Zilani Confederation requesting immediate military assistance. We are a peaceful people. We have never harmed anyone. The Korthok hegemony is destroying our worlds and killing our families." He paused, looking at the data pad showing their remaining defenses. The numbers were terrible. "We offer our complete medical database in exchange for aid against the Korthok invasion. Our medicine can cure diseases that have plagued the galaxy for thousands of years. Please, anyone who receives this message, we are dying." The station shook violently as another Korthok plasma barrage hit their shields. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The air recycling system made a grinding noise that meant it was about to fail. "Our defenses have fallen," Veltar continued desperately. "We have perhaps 10 cycles before our last sanctuary worlds are destroyed. Our children, our elderly, everyone will die. Please, we beg you." The transmission cut short as the station's main power core took a direct hit. Emergency lighting bathed everything in a red glow. HFY was shouting damage reports while other crew members tried to reroute power from life support. For the next hour, they received the same responses they'd been getting for days. Most civilizations didn't even bother to reply. The few that did sent messages like "unable to assist" or "too dangerous, good luck." The powerful galactic governments all had the same excuse. Couldn't risk war with the Korthok. Veltar was about to shut down the communication array to save power when something unexpected happened. A new signal came through, strong and clear. The voice was strange, speaking in a language the translation computer had never heard before. "Zilani, Confederation, this is Human Fleet Command. Admiral Jin, commanding 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. We are en route to your position. Estimated arrival in 6 standard days. Hold your lines." The entire bridge went completely quiet. Veltar stared at his screen, not believing what he had just heard. Commander Atherin slowly walked over to the communication station. Double quotes did they say they're coming to help us?" Atherin whispered. "Yes, sir," Veltar replied, his voice barely audible. "But sir, I've never heard of humans before. They're not in any of our databases. We don't know anything about them." Thrawn looked out at the stars through the cracked viewing port. Somewhere out there, unknown beings called humans were heading toward their dying worlds. He wondered if this was their salvation, or just another species that would abandon them when they saw how powerful the Korthok really were. Admiral Jin Wasoon rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the holographic display floating above the war table. The alien distress signal had been playing on repeat for the past 2 hours. Around him, his senior staff sat in uncomfortable silence, all waiting for his decision. The bridge of the UES Retribution felt unusually quiet, with only the soft hum of the ship's engines breaking the tension. "Play it again," Jin ordered quietly. The desperate voice of the alien called Veltar filled the room once more. Even through the translation software, you could hear the fear and hopelessness. Jin had heard similar calls before during the colony wars, but this was different. This was an entire civilization about to be wiped out. Captain Hiram shifted. In her chair, she had served under Jin for 8 years and knew that look on his face. He was already making plans, but she had to voice her concerns. "Sir, we know nothing about either species. This could be a trap. Korthok might be using the Zilani to lure human ships into an ambush." Jin turned to look at her. Hiram was one of his best officers, careful and smart. Her concerns were valid. What does our long-range scanning show? Nothing conclusive, sir. We're too far away. All we have are the energy signatures from their battles. The destruction patterns look real enough, but we can't be certain. Lieutenant Commander Na De Hine cleared his throat. The ship's intelligence. Officer, he had spent the last few hours analyzing every piece of data they could gather about both alien species. Sir, I've been studying their communication patterns and technology signatures. Go ahead, Na, Jin said, crossing his arms. Na activated his personal display, showing star charts and analysis reports. The Zilani appear to be a peaceful federation spread across 17 star systems. Their technology focuses heavily on medicine and agriculture. No significant military installations that we can detect. Their distress signal included scientific data about their medical advances. It's incredibly sophisticated. He switched to another display, showing different energy signatures. The Korthok are completely different. Every signal we've intercepted shows massive military installations, weapon testing, and fleet movements. Their expansion pattern over the last 50 years shows they've conquered at least 30 different civilizations. They don't negotiate or take prisoners. They just destroy everything. Commander Park Sung-ho, the fleet's tactical officer, leaned forward. Sir, if we respond to this call, we'll be announcing humanity's presence to the entire galaxy. Once word spreads that humans exist, there's no going back to staying hidden. Jin walked over to the large viewing screen showing the stars ahead. His reflection stared back at him, a career military officer who had spent his entire adult life defending human colonies from pirates and rebels. The decision he made in the next few minutes would change everything. How long would it take the Third Fleet to reach Zilani space? He asked. 6 days at maximum jump speed, replied navigation. Officer Kim Min-zu. But sir, we'd be going in completely blind. No reconnaissance, no backup, no support from Earth Command. Jin was quiet for a long moment. His officers waited, knowing better than to interrupt his thinking. Finally, he turned back to face them. In my 30 years of service, I've learned one thing that matters more than tactical advantages or political consequences, Jin said firmly. When someone calls for help, you answer. That's what separates us from the monsters. He looked each of his officers in the eye. The Zilani are facing genocide. The Korthok are murdering entire populations. We have the power to stop it. Sir Hiram tried one more time. We don't know if we can win against them. Jin smiled. Grimly, then we'll find out together. Signal all ships in the fleet. We jump in for ours. The first alarm started screaming at exactly 14:27 Galactic Standard Time. Sensor operator Kilvash nearly fell out of his chair as his instruments went completely crazy. Energy readings were spiking off the charts, and something massive was tearing through subspace right at the edge of Zilani territory. Commander Nexai, to the sensor bay immediately. Kilvash shouted into his communicator, his voice cracking. With panicked Fleet Commander Nexai rushed into the sensor control room, still pulling on his uniform jacket. He had been trying to get some sleep after 3 days of constant Korthok attacks. What's happening? Are they launching another assault? Sir, it's not the Korthok, Kilvash stammered, pointing at his screen. Something else is coming through. Subspace. Multiple contacts. Big ones. Nexai looked at the readings and felt his blood turn cold. 47 massive objects were emerging from subspace jumps simultaneously. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the Zilani databases. These ships were huge, some of them larger than entire Zilani space stations. Transfer all sensor data to the main display, Nexai ordered. The holographic projector activated, showing the approaching fleet in 3 dimensions. What they saw made everyone in the room go silent. These weren't the sleek, elegant ships that most civilized species built. These vessels looked like they had been designed by warriors who expected to fight and die in space. The largest ships were covered in thick armor plating that showed clear signs of battle damage. Massive weapon turrets stuck out from their hulls, like the spines of some dangerous creature. Smaller ships swarmed around the big ones in perfect military formations, moving with a precision that spoke of years of combat experience. Sir, whispered Communications Officer Tethron, the radiation output from their engines? It would kill most species just to be near them. What kind of beings can survive inside those ships? Next, I was studying the whole compositions that his sensors were picking up. The metals these humans used didn't make sense. Some of the elements were so dense and radioactive that Zilani scientists had always assumed they were too dangerous to use in construction. Yet here were entire fleets built from materials that should have been impossible to work with. Commander called out another technician. I'm detecting fighter craft launching from the larger vessels, hundreds of them. They're moving in attack formations. The small human fighters moved through space in ways that defied Zilani understanding of physics. They accelerated at speeds that should have turned their pilots into paste against their cockpit walls. They made turns that created G-forces no known species could survive. By the great light, Tethrin whispered, what manner of beings build ships like these? What kind of world creates warriors who can pilot craft in such conditions? The answer came moments later. The lead human vessel, a massive dreadnought scarred by countless battles, opened a communication channel. The voice that came through was calm and steady, showing no fear despite being outnumbered by Korthok forces. Zilani Confederation, this is Admiral Jin of the Human Third Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to assist. Nexhai stared at the display showing the human armada. They had asked for help, but they never expected anything like this. These humans had brought an entire war fleet to save them. Ships that looked like they had been built in the forges of some nightmare world where only the strongest survived. Wait, have we summoned? He whispered to himself. Captain Sujin checked her uniform one last time before activating the long-range communication array. This would be humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization, and she wanted to make sure everything went perfectly. The bridge crew of the UES Vengeance worked quietly around her, preparing recording equipment and translation software. Communications online, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Yoon Jaho. The Zilani High Council is ready to receive our transmission. Sujin took a deep breath and nodded. Open the channel. The holographic display in front of her flickered to life, showing a grand chamber filled with tall, elegant beings. The Zilani High Council members were beautiful in an almost ethereal way. Their pale blue skin seemed to glow softly under their chamber's lighting. Their large eyes held a gentle intelligence that spoke of countless generations of peaceful evolution. For a moment, both species simply stared at each other in fascination. Then Sujin saw the exact moment when the Zilani realized what they were looking at. Council leader Zethmar, who had been leaning forward with curiosity, suddenly jerked backward as if he had been struck. His large, peaceful eyes widened in what could only be described as primal terror. Around him, other council members realized immediately what was happening. To the herbivorous Zilani, every aspect of human appearance screamed danger. Her forward-facing eyes were the eyes of a hunter, designed to track prey across vast distances. When she smiled politely, her canine teeth were clearly visible teeth. Designed for tearing meat, her bone structure was heavy and dense, built to withstand impacts that would shatter more delicate species. Greetings, Zilani High Council, Sujin said calmly, trying to project as much peaceful intent as possible. We received your distress call and have come to assist. We understand you face a military threat from the Korthok hegemony. Please provide us with tactical data on enemy positions and fleet strength. Zethmar struggled visibly to maintain his diplomatic composure. His hands were shaking slightly as he gripped the armrests of his chair. Your species. Please forgive our reaction. We were not prepared for. You appear quite formidable. Sujin glanced at her own reflection in a nearby monitor and understood their fear. Humans had evolved as apex predators on a world that constantly tried to kill them. Everything about their physiology reflected that harsh reality. We evolved on a high-gravity world, Sujin explained matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Earth's gravity is roughly 2.3 times your galactic standard. Our ancestors were persistence hunters. We would chase our prey across vast distances until it collapsed from exhaustion. This evolutionary background makes us well-suited for extended conflict. The translation completed, and she watched as the meaning sank in among the Zilani Council members. Several of them exchanged terrified glances. One elderly council member whispered something to his neighbor, who nodded grimly. Zethmar cleared his throat nervously. Captain Sujin, may I ask? What is the population of your homeworld? Earth currently supports about 12 billion humans, Sujin replied, though we have colonies on 47 other worlds now. The silence that followed was deafening. The Zilani had summoned 12 billion apex predators from across the galaxy to save them. They were beginning to wonder if the cure might be worse than the disease. Pilot Han Tae-woo gripped his fighter's controls as he guided his ship through the Kepler asteroid field. Chunks of rock the size of buildings spun through space around him, some moving fast enough to tear his fighter in half if he made even a small mistake. His heads-up display showed dozens of collision warnings, but Han ignored them all. This is crazy, muttered his co-pilot, Kim Dong-han, watching the asteroids streak past their cockpit. No sane pilot would fly through this field. Han grinned as he pulled his fighter into a tight spiral around a massive asteroid, using its gravity to slingshot toward their target zone. The G-forces should have knocked both men unconscious, but their enhanced bone density and cardiovascular systems handled the stress easily. This was just another day at the office for human pilots. Scout 7 to Retribution, Han spoke into his comm system, approaching the outer edge of Korthok patrol routes. Beginning reconnaissance sweep, copy Scout 7, came the reply from the flagship. Maintain stealth protocols. We need to know what we're up against. Han activated his ship's advanced sensors and moved carefully through the debris field left by recent battles. Twisted metal from destroyed Zilani ships floated everywhere, still glowing from plasma impacts. The destruction was total. The Korthok hadn't left anything intact. Contact ahead, Kim reported quietly. Large vessel, definitely Korthok design. Han adjusted his course to get a better view. What he saw made his blood run cold. A massive Korthok battlecruiser was positioned near the wreckage of what had once been a Zilani medical transport. The white ship had clear medical symbols painted on its hull. It was obviously a civilian vessel. Oh no, Kim whispered. Han, look at the scanner. There are escape pods in the water. Han's sensors picked up 17 small life pods that had launched from the destroyed medical ship. Each pod contained Zilani civilians, doctors, nurses, medical students who had been trying to evacuate wounded from a nearby colony. They were floating helplessly in space, waiting for rescue. But rescue wasn't coming. As Han watched in horror, the Korthok battlecruiser began systematically targeting the escape pods with its weapons. Bright plasma beams lanced out, and one by one, the pods disappeared in flashes of light. Retribution, this is Scout 7, Han reported, his voice tight with anger. I've got eyes on a Korthok patrol. They single quotes, dot. They're executing Zilani, civilians, medical personnel, in escape pods. The Korthok are murdering them one by one. Han transmitted his visual feed back to the human fleet. The tactical channel went completely silent as Admiral Jin and his staff watched the atrocity unfold on their screens. These weren't soldiers being killed in battle. These were doctors and nurses who had dedicated their lives to healing others. On the bridge of the UES, Retribution, Admiral Jin watched the feed with growing fury. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the arms of his command chair. Around him, his staff officers stared at the display in shocked silence. When the last escape pod was destroyed, Jin activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice was calm and controlled, but anyone who knew him could hear the deadly promise hidden beneath the surface. Korthok vessels. This is Admiral Jin of the human Third Fleet. You have committed acts of war against non-combatants. You have one opportunity to withdraw from Zilani space immediately. You will not receive another warning. The hunt was about to begin. Warlord Kethfer stood on the command bridge of his massive flagship, the Doombringer, surrounded by holographic displays showing his fleet's positions. 200 Korthok warships spread across space in perfect formation, the largest armada he had ever commanded. Behind him, his tactical officers worked at their stations, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. Sir, the human fleet is maintaining position at the edge of sensor range, reported his intelligence officer. 47 vessels total. They appeared to be waiting. Kethfer laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. In his 30 years of conquest, he had destroyed 17 different civilizations. The Korthok way was simple. Bring overwhelming force. Crush all resistance. Take what you want. These unknown humans would learn this lesson like all the others.
47.
Ships against 200, he snarled, his multiple rows of teeth gleaming. These humans must be either insane or incredibly stupid. Do they think their tiny fleet can challenge the might of the Korthok hegemony? His communications officer looked up from his station. Sir, should we respond to their surrender demand? Demand. Kethfer roared with laughter. They demand that we surrender? Oh, this is rich. Signal all vessels, advance formation, and annihilate them. Leave no survivors. I want their wreckage to serve as a warning to any other species foolish enough to interfere with Korthok expansion. Korthok fleet began moving forward in their traditional battle formation, massive battleships in the center. Cruisers on the flanks, fighters providing cover. It was a formation that had never failed them before. They expected the humans to either run away or try to fight them at long range. It's like every other civilized species. What happened next changed everything the Korthok thought they knew about warfare. Instead of retreating or maintaining distance, the human ships suddenly accelerated directly toward the Korthok formation at speeds that should have been impossible. Their fighters didn't stay in protective formations. They scattered like deadly insects, weaving through Korthok defensive fire with movements that defied physics. What are they doing? Gasped Kethfer, his tactical officer. They are flying straight into our weapons range? This is suicide. But the human ships didn't explode like they should have. Their hulls absorbed plasma impacts that would have vaporized other vessels. Instead of elegant energy duels at safe distances, the humans came in close where their weapons could do maximum damage. Commander Rand, Bokung's voice crackled over. They intercepted human communications as she led her destroyer squadron straight into the heart of the Korthok formation. This is Destroyer Squadron 7. All ships prepare for close quarters engagement. Show them what happens when you murder civilians. Her destroyers moved like sharks attacking a school of fish, ignored damage that should have destroyed them, their armored hulls taking hit after hit while they closed to point-blank range. When they opened fire, their weapons unleashed concentrated nuclear fury that lit up space like miniature suns. The first Korthok ship to die was the heavy cruiser Bonecrusher. Rand's flagship put 3 nuclear torpedoes through its hull in less than 10 seconds. The explosion was so bright that automatic filters had to activate on every view screen in the area. Impossible, whispered Kethfer as his sensors showed ship after ship disappearing from his fleet roster. In the first 5 minutes of combat, 60 Korthok vessels had been completely destroyed. The humans weren't just fighting, they were hunting. Warlord. Kethfer watched his fleet crumble around him as human ships tore through his formations like wolves among sheep. More than half his vessels were either destroyed or severely damaged. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They seemed to actually enjoy close combat, laughing over their communication channels as they rammed his ships. Sir, we're losing the battle, his tactical officer reported, panic clear in his voice. Their tactics make no sense. They're sacrificing their own ships to get closer to us. Kethfer's multiple eyes blazed with fury. No primitive species would humiliate the Kortho hegemony. If he couldn't defeat these humans in ship-to-ship combat, he would show them the true power of Kortho technology. Activate the World Cracker, he ordered. His bridge crew froze. The World Cracker was their ultimate weapon, a massive device capable of splitting planets in half. They had used it only 3 times before when civilizations refused to surrender. The weapon took enormous energy to charge, leaving their flagship vulnerable. Sir, his weapons officer hesitated. If we use the World Cracker now, our shields will be down for 20 minutes. The humans could ... do it, Kethfer roared. Target the Zilani homeworld. When these humans see 8 billion civilians die in front of their eyes, they'll surrender or go insane with grief. Deep in the belly of the Doombringer, the World Cracker began its charging sequence. Massive energy collectors drew power from the ship's core, building up the force needed to crack a planet's crust. Warning lights flashed throughout the vessel as shields dropped and weapon systems went offline. The human response was immediate and terrifying. Captain Lee Soo-young watched the energy readings from her carrier's bridge.
They're charging some.
Kind of super weapon. Target appears to be the Zalani homeworld. Not on my watch, she growled. Launch all drop pods. All Marines, prepare for hostile boarding action. Hundreds of small pods shot out from the human carriers like angry hornets. Each pod contained a squad of human Marines equipped for ship-to-ship combat. The pods punched through space at incredible speeds, their dense construction allowing them to smash through Korthok armor that should have stopped them. Sergeant Yoon Koo-min felt his pod slam into the enemy ship's hull with bone-rattling force. Emergency lights flashed as his squad's cutting tools burned through the metal. Within seconds, they had carved an opening and were inside the Korthok vessel. Squad 7 is inside, he reported calmly. Atmosphere is toxic, gravity is 1.8 standard. Perfect conditions. His enhanced lungs filtered out the poisonous gases that filled the ship while his teammates moved through corridors designed for much larger beings. The artificial gravity that would crush most species felt comfortable to humans who had evolved. Under Earth's crushing weight, movement ahead, called out Private Park Ji-hoon. Multiple contacts. The Korthok warriors who came around the corner were massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armor and weapons designed to intimidate. They'd conquered dozens of species through sheer physical dominance, but they had never faced humans before. The boarding action lasted exactly 12 minutes. When it ended, the World Cracker was under human control. The Korthok flagship was sending surrender signals on all frequencies. Warlord Kethfer stood frozen on his command bridge, watching his tactical display show the complete destruction of everything he had built. 200 ships had become 50, then 30, then 20. The humans were tearing through his fleet like it was made of paper instead of the finest Korthok war machines. "Sir, the Bloodhammer just exploded," reported his communications officer, voice shaking. The humans rammed a damaged destroyer straight through its main hull. Both ships are gone. I couldn't understand what he was seeing. These humans used tactics that made no sense. They would sacrifice their own vessels to take out larger Korthok ships. When their weapons were damaged, they used their ships as weapons. When their ships were crippled, they launched themselves in small pods directly at enemy vessels. The Skullcrusher is reporting human boarders on decks 7 through 12, came another panicked report. They're cutting through our security doors with some kind of portable starfire. Our warriors can't stop them. On his main screen, Kethfer watched a human cruiser that should have been destroyed hours ago continue fighting with half its hull missing. Atmosphere streamed from massive holes in its side, but the crew kept firing their weapons until the very last second. When it finally died, it took 2 Korthok battleships with it. What kind of species fights like this? He whispered to himself. What kind of world creates beings who laugh while they die? His flagship suddenly shook violently as something crashed into the hull. Emergency lights began flashing red while alarm sirens wailed throughout the massive vessel. Kethfer grabbed his command chair to keep from falling as another impact shook the ship. "Sir, we have multiple hull breaches on decks 15, 22, and 38. His damage control officer shouted over the noise. "Human boarding pods. They're cutting their way inside." The sound of weapons fire echoed through the ship's corridors. Kethfer could hear his security forces engaging the invaders, but the fighting kept getting closer to the bridge. His elite guards warriors who had conquered 17 civilizations were being pushed back by a handful of human soldiers. "Seal the bridge," he ordered desperately. "Activate all security protocols." But even the heavy blast doors that could stop tank rounds couldn't hold back the humans. The sound of cutting tools filled the air as something began burning through the entrance. Bright sparks flew from the metal as human technology carved through barriers that had never been breached. The doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Through the smoke and debris walked a figure in dark-powered armor. The human's face was visible through his helmet visor, and Kethfer saw something that made his blood freeze, predator eyes that showed no fear. no doubt only the calm confidence of a born killer. Warlord Kethfer, Colonel Jin Hoon-sik said, pleasantly, as if they were meeting at a social gathering. You're under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. Your fleet is to surrender immediately, or we'll demonstrate why humans are considered the apex predators of our galaxy. Kethfer looked into those merciless human eyes and felt something his species had almost forgotten since they became the galaxy's greatest conquerors. Pure, primal fear. I surrender, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Please, show mercy to us. Mercy from the death-spawn demons. Across the Zilani homeworld, cities erupted in celebration as the news spread through every communication network. After weeks of terror and the very real possibility of extinction, their people were finally safe. In the capital city of Lathandros, millions of Zilani gathered in the streets, their pale blue faces glowing with joy and relief. Admiral Jin Wusong stood on the observation deck of the UES Retribution, watching the defeated Korthok fleet maintain formation under human guard. 86 ships remained from their original 200, a broken armada that would never again threaten innocent civilizations. Admiral called Communications Officer Yoon Jae-ho. The formal surrender ceremony is ready to begin. Jin nodded and walked to the main bridge, where representatives from both fleets had gathered via holographic display. Warlord Kethfer appeared on screen. He's no longer the confident conqueror, but a broken being who had learned what real predators looked like. By the authority of the galactic rules of war, Jin announced formally, I accept the unconditional surrender of the Korthok 7th Conquest Fleet. All surviving vessels will be escorted to neutral territory for internment. War crimes tribunals will be scheduled according to standard protocols. Dr. Zethmar, the Zelena's chief medical officer, stood quietly beside Jin throughout the ceremony. When the official proceedings ended, he approached the human admiral with obvious nervousness. Admiral Jin, he began hesitantly, our complete medical database has been transferred to your ships as promised. Our healing technologies, genetic treatments, surgical techniques, everything we have developed over thousands of years is now yours. Jin smiled warmly. Dr. Zethmar, your people have been incredibly generous.
It is.
Medical knowledge will save countless human lives across our colonies. The Zilani doctor shifted uncomfortably. But Admiral, we must ask, your species, ... after seeing what you can do in battle, ... He paused, struggling to find the right words. Are we safe? Are we in danger from our own saviors? Jin looked out at the stars through the bridge viewport, considering his answer carefully. Dr. Zethmar, humans are probably the most dangerous species in known space. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. War is something we understand better than most civilizations ever will. The Zilani's face went pale with worry. But, Jin continued with a gentle smile, we're also the most reliable allies you could ever ask for. When someone calls for help, we answer. When someone threatens our friends, we respond with everything we have. That's what makes us human. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Across the galaxy, news of the human victory spread like wildfire through communication networks. Alien civilizations that had never heard of humanity suddenly found themselves studying every detail of the battle. Some species, inspired by human courage, reached out with offers of friendship and alliance. Others, terrified by human capabilities, prayed they would never need such dangerous saviors. In his personal quarters that night, Admiral Jin sat down to write his final log entry for the mission. Admiral's Log, Day 847. First contact with Galactic. Civilization complete. The Zilani Confederation is now under human protection. The Korthok threat has been neutralized. Word is spreading that humanity has entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as protectors of the innocent. Any species that threatens our allies will quickly learn why Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. The age of human expansion has officially begun.